All right. Go ahead and open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 5. Well, while I was studying about this message, I was thinking about maybe dividing it up into 3 parts or 2 parts. I decided to do it into 2 parts, which means there will be a lot more information in the 2 parts. So make sure you're ready to pay attention real quick. Yeah? Hello? Anyone there? Oh, okay. All right. Hello there. Okay. All right. So are you ready? You ready to pay attention? Let's review real quickly. So far, we have studied about the Beatitudes. Remember, there were 8 of them: the poor in spirit, the mourners, the meek, hunger and thirst for righteousness, merciful, pure in heart, peacemakers, persecuted for righteousness' sake. Then, a couple weeks ago, we talked about the salt and the light. And last week, we talked about Jesus fulfilling the law and the prophets, which is very important to remember how Jesus fulfilled the law and the prophets. And that is important because we will see that today, actually. It is very important. Remember last week we talked about Jesus coming to destroy the law. Is that right? Did he come to destroy the law and the prophets? No. He came to fulfill it, to fulfill the law and the prophets. That is very, very important. Why? Because Jesus actually goes into talking about more about the law, and we will look into that today. So I want you to look at Matthew chapter 5, verse 21, verses 21 through 26. Go ahead and read that. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26. Okay. Matthew chapter 5, verses 21 through 26. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not kill. And whosoever shall kill shall be in danger of the judgment. But I say unto you that whosoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of the judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raca, shall be in danger of the council, but whosoever shall say, Thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Therefore, if thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift before the altar, and go thy way. First be reconciled to thy brother, and then come and offer thy gift. Verse 25, agree with thine adversary quickly, whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Verily I say unto thee, thou shalt by no means come out thence till thou hast paid the uttermost farthing. So my topic for today is, but I say unto you. This phrase is said 6 times here. Jesus says, but I say unto you. What's the point? Remember, Jesus right now is on the mount, teaching and preaching to the people. The people have followed him up the mountain, and they're crowded around him, and they're listening to what Jesus has to tell them. Who were the religious people at that time? At that time, there was a very strong Jewish tradition, and those people were called the Pharisees. These religious leaders were very strict in following their laws, And remember, last week we talked about Jesus saying that your righteousness has to be more than the Pharisees, which is impossible. It's impossible to be so righteous that your righteousness will get you into heaven. The Pharisees thought that their goal was to be perfect, and that was the goal in their life. Jesus did have rules and laws that we need to follow, but they missed the point. And what did they miss? Jesus goes through them, and we'll be looking at them today. The first point he brings up is murder. Murder in our hearts. Murder. Maybe you have done this. Wait, don't tell me. Don't raise your hand that, yes, I have done this before. I have murdered a person. Oh, Rodney? I'm just kidding. He said, no, I'm just an interpreter over here. Who have you murdered? Well, the point is, that's not the point. We're going to talk more about this. It has been said long ago, thou shalt not kill. Where do we find that? In the Old Testament, where the 10 Commandments are. It's number 6 in the 10 Commandments. You'll find that in Exodus. It says, thou shalt not kill. In the Jewish tradition, if someone murdered someone else and they have been caught, then they would then be murdered and killed. We have something like that today. It's called the death penalty. It still takes place today. If I'm guilty of killing someone, then my punishment will be that I will be killed. just recently we've heard about someone in Colorado. Maybe you remember 4 years ago during a Batman movie, someone walked into the movie theater and killed a lot of people. Do you remember that? Well, just last week, the court has decided that yes, his punishment is life in prison, that he will not be getting the death penalty. And a lot of people are angry about that. They want to see him die for what he's done. But his punishment is death in prison, or life in prison. Now this Old Testament law, thou shalt not kill, Jesus brings up and says, but I say unto you, let's back up a little bit here. Does Jesus change the law, this commandment? Is he coming up with a whole different law? No. Remember what we talked about last week? Jesus came to fulfill every law. To fulfill the law and the prophets, not to come to destroy the law and the prophets, but to fulfill it, to help the people to understand the law better. So Jesus is saying, the law says, thou shalt not kill, and if you kill, you are guilty, right? But even deeper than that is more of a heart problem. He talks about anger, being angry with your brother without reason, saying to your brother, Raka, or saying to your brother, you fool. Jesus says these 3 things. Maybe you're thinking, okay, what does Raka mean? We'll talk about that. First, Jesus mentions angry without reason, in danger of judgment. Raka means empty-headed, kind of like stupid. But the point is to bring that person down. Saying that to someone, oh, you're stupid, you're nobody. In danger of the council. And then saying, you fool. You're calling someone oh, you're awful, you don't know anything, or without God, you don't have God, or you're such a fool, meaning you could be in danger of hellfire. Okay, so if I tell my brother, you're a fool, does that mean I'm going to hell? Well, yes. Wait a minute. That's not really that big of a deal. I'm just angry with my brother, and because of that, I'm going to hell for being angry? Well, yes. The answer is yes. Well, that's not fair. God doesn't have any mercy. Where's the mercy? Where's God's mercy? Well, there's no mercy there. That's the law. Jesus explains, you think that just murdering someone makes you guilty, that if you kill someone that you're breaking the law, it goes deeper than that. If you're angry with someone, you have already broken that law. There's sin in anger. It's already there. You've broken the law just by being angry. Jesus doesn't mention court or the judge. Jesus talks about God being the judge, God on the throne. Your righteousness, if you're angry with your brother just one time, you're guilty already. You're guilty already just for the one time, and your punishment is hell. Wow, that is harsh judgment. Yeah, that's right. That is hard. Maybe you're thinking, okay. All right, so what's next? What do we do? Therefore, we see this in verse 23. Therefore. So, what do we do? How do we solve this? What do we do with this problem? The goal is to have peace with your brother, to have a good relationship with fellow Christians, have a good relationship with the people that you're around. It says in verse 23, if I bring my gift to the altar, it is talking about when they brought their gifts, their sacrifices to the temple, the animal that they were going to sacrifice to God, and then they remember a problem that they have with a certain person. What did Jesus say to do? He said to hold that sacrifice, go find that person and make it right. After that is done, then go back to the temple and make your sacrifice. So, meaning the relationship with God, it is hard to have a relationship with God if my relationship with people are messed up, or are not right. When I'm not having love or mercy with other people and not solving problems with other people, and I just don't care about them and try to think, oh, I just care about my relationship with God, it just doesn't work that way. You have to solve your problems with people first. You know, I just hate putting things off. I hate putting problems off. I like to have my problems fixed now, right away. Some people, they like to think about it and take time to calm down and cool off and kind of think about the problem and then fix the problem. For example, me and my wife, we're the opposite. I like my problems fixed now. My wife likes to calm down first and then fix the problem later. And I'm just standing around waiting for her. Are you ready? Are you ready to fix this problem? No, she'll say, I need time. And I'm just waiting. And there's different personalities, and that's fine. But the important concept here is Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. It says, "Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." Meaning, don't put it off. Don't put it off forever. Don't put the problem off forever. Maybe sometimes you need time to think about it. That's fine, but not to put it off for a very long time. What happens then? What happens if you put it off? You put a problem off. Anger can build up. It could get worse until maybe you blow up over it and the problem gets even bigger. So I encourage you, when there's a problem between you and your brothers and sisters in Christ, solve it. Solve the problem. Approach them. Go to them. Don't put it off. Some of you have come to me and told me your problems, or tell me the problems that you have with me. Thank you. Come talk to me. I like the open communication. Maybe I don't know that there's a problem and I'm just going my way and I didn't know there was a problem until someone comes to me and says that there's a problem. Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, maybe I can change my behavior this way, or we can work together for our goal to have, to be unified. When we don't do that and we try to worship God and have a relationship with Him, but we still have this problem in the back of our mind that continues to build up, we need to solve that first so we can have a better relationship with God and have a clear mind. So first, Jesus talks about murder. Maybe you think, well, I've never murdered anyone. Well, how many of you have been angry with someone? Maybe you need both your hands up. Yes, I've been angry. Growing up, I was a hothead. I was very angry. Really? You might think, wow, I didn't know Pastor Mark was angry. An angry person. Yeah, I was. It took me time to learn and mature and how to change that, change my behavior. So we're all guilty. We're guilty of murder. Our heart, feeling hatred, anger against someone. This means that we're guilty. We're guilty of this. Then we go on to the second thing Jesus mentions, adultery. Let's look at verses 27 through 30. Let's read Matthew chapter 5, 27 through 30. You have heard that it was said by them of old time, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off, and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. So Jesus says, back in old time, and in the Old Testament, in the Ten Commandments, it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." This is in the Ten Commandments, number 7. Maybe you can say, "Well, I have never committed adultery." Or maybe you have. Either way, or you could say, "Well, I've never committed adultery. I've been faithful to my wife 100%. I've never cheated." But Jesus brings this even deeper. He says, "But whosoever looks on a woman or man in a lustful manner is guilty already." So maybe a woman says, "Ha ha ha, it talks about man, so it doesn't apply to me." No, it does. This applies to both men and women. This applies to both men and women. Just recently, there's movies out with women that there are women who lust after men. It's the same thing with men. Men lust after women, and they both can be guilty, men or women. So what's the problem? Well, maybe you say, "Well, I've never cheated. I've never committed adultery." Well, have you lusted after a woman? No one here? Everyone's innocent? Who's willing to say, "Yes, I have. Both my hands are up. I'm guilty." Okay. Well, maybe you're a little bit embarrassed about that. Well, we're all guilty. We all are guilty. In church today, we tend to not talk about sex or these kinds of things. It's a private matter. We tend to say, "Oh, we shouldn't talk about this." But Jesus talks about it. Jesus is right here talking about it. Back then, it was probably even more of a private matter than we think today. This is all over TV. We see it every day. You see it on the internet. You see it on billboards when you're driving on the interstate. It's right there. But the church doesn't want to talk about it. They want to be quiet about it. That's a problem. We need to talk about it. We have to. It's here in the Bible. It's right there. Jesus is emphasizing how important this is. Therefore, so what do we do? he talks about your eye. Is it an eye problem? Do you have an eye problem? Or do you have a hand problem? It's not an eye problem or a hand problem. It's a heart problem. It's a heart issue. Does Jesus really want you to pluck your eye out and cut your hand off? No. I have heard of some people who pluck their eyes out because they don't want to lust after women, but what's the problem? The problem is still there because it's still in your head, it's still in your mind. You can still think about it. We have a heart problem. God doesn't want you to be blind and cut your hands off and not have any hands. No. He wants you to be successful. So how can we be successful? We need to set up boundaries for ourselves. To have good judgment, to be wise. Right now we have the internet everywhere. I can just pull out my phone and get on the internet. The computers, everything is just there, ready. A long time ago, back then, if we wanted to maybe look for a woman to lust after, we could go to a bar or something, or go into the stores that have them, or whatever. But now we just have the internet. It's just there. It's ready. It's easy to get to. So how do we set up our boundaries? There are boundaries that we can set up. You can ask someone to help you with it. Let me know if you need help. We can help you. I don't want this church to be quiet about talking about sexual things. No, we need to talk about it. If you have a problem, if you have a struggle, and you want to overcome it and be successful, don't be embarrassed. Come to me. I've been through this. I've experienced through this. Maybe you think, oh, Pastor Mark, you had a problem? Yes, I have a problem. It's called sin. Hello? We all have problems with sin. This is the point here. Jesus is explaining about sin. You think you're holy. You think you're good. You think you're, righteous. Well, you're not. You're full of sin. You think, I haven't murdered anyone, or I haven't committed adultery. I'm a good person. No. Jesus talks about anger. He talks about lust in your heart. You're guilty already. So what do? 1 Corinthians 6:18 through 20 says, flee fornication. The Greek word for fornication is the same word comes from the same word of pornography. Flee. Don't think about it. No, get out. Leave. Then in verse 19, it says, your body is a temple. Keep it clean. Your body is a temple of the Holy Ghost. Keep it clean. We sometimes use that verse for smoking or drinking alcohol or eating too much, overeating, but we don't talk about the verse applying to sexual desires. That's what this verse is really talking about. Flee. Keep your body clean, pure. 1 Corinthians 10:13 talks about there is no temptation that only one person endures, but we all are tempted the same way. We all go through temptations. Maybe you feel like, well, I'm the only person that's struggling with this temptation. No, you're not. We all struggle. So what do? We find a way to escape. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, all temptation, there is a way to escape from all temptation. I think about Joseph. He had the coat of many colors. And about Joseph, he was working in Potiphar's house. And Potiphar was a very rich man. His wife noticed Joseph and wanted him and tried to get him to sleep with her, to have sex with her. She tried to convince Joseph, and he kept rejecting her. Then finally one day, they were alone in the house together. Potiphar's wife actually grabs Joseph, and Joseph, he just takes his coat off and starts running away. He didn't stay there. He ran away. So today, we need to find a way to escape. We need to figure out our boundaries, to set up boundaries, how to escape from our temptations. There is a way. Joseph could have stayed there. That was easy for him. Sure, it would have been easy for him to be with her. But he refused and he fled. Our third topic, it's kind of sticky issue. Jesus talks about divorce in verses 31 through 32. Matthew chapter 5, verse 31 and 32. It hath been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causeth her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced, committeth adultery. This is not from the Ten Commandments, but from Moses, when he writes in the law and talks about divorce in Deuteronomy. Back in the Jewish time, there were two different teachings about divorce. One teaching was called Hillel, Hillel. That teaching was about a man who could divorce his wife for any reason, like, oh, she's a lousy cook, or our sex life isn't good. And he could divorce her for any reason he wanted. He could divorce her. The second teaching was called Shammai, limited divorce to only adultery. So divorce was allowed only if the wife committed adultery. Maybe you remember Joseph and Mary, Jesus' mother and father, when Mary became pregnant and Joseph was shocked and planned to divorce her, right? Because he thought, that they haven't been together, they've been engaged, and then she was pregnant, so obviously she committed adultery, right? That's what he thought. So Joseph planned to have a divorce with Mary, which would have been appropriate according to these teachings, these beliefs. It would have been under the Shammai teaching. Now we could talk about this more, but putting it aside, the point here is divorce leads to committing adultery. What does that mean? Divorce leads to committing adultery. When you have promised to marry someone and you commit to that person, is there like a 10-year contract with that person, or maybe like a 5-year contract? No, your commitment is forever with that person. Until death do we part. That's what we typically say when we marry someone. It's a commitment to be with that person. Right now, divorce in America is extreme. They say it's about 75% have experienced divorce, have experienced divorce either themselves or by their parents, seeing their parents divorce. 75%. How many of you have seen that, have been experienced divorce? How many of you? Your parents or yourself. They say 75%. So, divorce is very easy and very accessible. I think it's like $200-300. If it's agreeable, you can just go to the courthouse, pay your fee, and you're divorced. If it's agreed by both parties, it can be very easy. But just because it's easy doesn't mean it changes the truth. In the Bible, maybe you say, well, Pastor Mark, the reason I got a divorce, well, it doesn't matter. I don't want to hear about the reason. We're talking about the heart issue. The heart of the problem is we are guilty. Maybe you say, well, I've been through a divorce, but remember we just talked about committing adultery. And most of you raised your hand and said, yes, I have committed adultery by lust. That's the heart of the problem. We in church think, oh, they've been divorced, and we judge them because they have been divorced, and we look down on people. Many churches do that. What a shame. That is a shame. We have our own problems. I have my own problems. You know, I don't have time to judge you for your problems. Your past experiences, the things that has happened to you, your mistakes. Well, I really don't care. I have my own problems. I'm guilty as well. You look at Pastor Mark. If you were to look at my past, you would probably judge me for my past. So why do we waste time judging other people? This is Jesus' point here to the Pharisees. They think they're so much better than everyone else because they haven't done these things. Oh, I follow the law. Well, Jesus is explaining to them. He's trying to get the point across here to this crowd of people on the mountain. Hello? You are not perfect. You have problems too. You are full of sin. The point is that we lack. We are not good enough. We are not at God's level. So how does this apply to your life? I want to really thank you for your attention this morning. These have been very heavy, sticky issues that we've been going through about murder and committing adultery and divorce. These are strong topics. Maybe you're thinking, well, I'm innocent. Are you? I encourage you to examine yourselves. Think about, well, yes, I have been angry. I struggle with anger. I have a lust problem. I'm not faithful. Are you guilty? How many of you are guilty of these three things? I'm guilty. I have problems. How do I solve my problems? Jesus is teaching these people. I wonder what the people are thinking. I wonder if the people are thinking, Jesus? You have so much power. I just saw you do these miracles. And now you're preaching at me, telling me these things, that I have a problem with lust, and that means if I've lusted, I've committed adultery. Well, I don't really like that. I wonder, as Jesus is preaching and teaching to these people, what these people are thinking. I wonder if some people were offended and started to leave. I wonder. I don't know if that really happened, but I think about that. Maybe they shake their head and say, well, he's not the Messiah. This is not what I expected to hear. This is not what I want. See ya. What's our attitude when we come to Jesus? We have to understand that we are guilty. You are guilty. For so long, the church has an attitude of looking down at others, looking down at the world. Oh, they're so full of sin. They have so many problems. Oh, the world, it's so awful. Hello? I have a problem. I have sin. Do you have a problem? I think so. Instead of looking at other people and judging other people, we need to stop and evaluate ourselves. Jesus was trying to explain to the crowd about their lost condition. We are broken. We are messed up. We don't need to pluck our eyes out or cut our hands off. We don't need to do that. We don't need to lock ourselves up in a room and hide or become a monk. You know about the Catholic monks who have to isolate themselves and say nothing. Is that what we want? Or we need that? No, we don't need to be like that. We don't have to change our behavior. We need to change our heart. If we change our heart, then that will change our behavior. If you repent, that will help us to improve. What we need to do really is to change our heart out for a new one. Our heart is deceitfully wicked. We need a new life. And the Holy Spirit comes into our heart the moment we receive salvation. That's when we get new life. Maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I've never been saved. I've never accepted. I've never experienced this new life. Well, I encourage you to think about it. I encourage you to think about if you are already saved, if you are a Christian, to stop judging other people. Look at yourself. Examine yourself. Realize, oh, I have my own problems. Jesus is teaching the people here we need to realize and understand that we need help. We need Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you for your word. I love how Jesus was preaching to these people long ago and how it still applies to us today. Thank you for Jesus Christ. Without Jesus, we would have no hope. We would be lost, no salvation. Lord, thank you for Jesus' words here and how they were so strong and sometimes we think, oh, we're so righteous and we're so good, and maybe we might look that way on the outside, but in our hearts we're just filthy. We have problems, we have guilt. And if we were to stand before you without Jesus, our punishment would be hell. But Jesus Christ has given us the gift of free salvation. We can't speak for ourselves, but we have Jesus who can be our lawyer and speak to God, the judge, to speak for us and say that my blood has covered their sin. And God will accept the forgiveness and cleanse us from all guilt so that we can be innocent. Have liberty through him. Lord, bless us as we leave today. Help us to remember this. Help me, Lord, not to judge others and to look down on them. No, but help me to look at myself, to examine myself, and to encourage others to look to you, to find salvation in you. Bless us today in Jesus' name. Amen.